Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. Very honored to be joined by Paul Levitin. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. I really have been looking forward to this.
Yeah, same here. And we just connected on your podcast. So it's been awesome to collaborate. And I'm excited to have another great conversation, just diving into things that are so important for people to cultivate in their life. And one of those is confidence and mindset. And I want to get into that. But before we do, can you talk about some of your story, your backstory of where you were and in life and what brought you to helping the people that you help today?
Yeah, definitely. So currently, as you mentioned, my podcast is called Happy Healthy Human. And what I do is a podcast, and I also have coaching services that are under the Happy Healthy Human umbrella, but everything is around that Happy Healthy Human. And I help people with self-confidence and mindset, as you mentioned, because that's what I think that people need. And the reason that I got there was because that's what people told me. I was a personal trainer, is how all of this started. Similar to you, I started in the fitness world. And then through personal training, I got involved in nutrition. And then through personal training and nutrition, what I came to learn was that there was just a gap. There was something that was missing. As I could give everyone the workouts, I could give everyone the nutrition, I could tell people what to do, and people still wouldn't do it. And then even if they did do it, a lot of people would get the result that they thought was their quote unquote dream result and realize that they still weren't happy. And that's where I started to dive into personal development and psychology, human behavior, behavioral science, and the why behind the what of what we do, and started to understand people at a deeper level. This was both a personal journey for myself. I was learning all of this stuff, and a professional journey so I could help my clients better. And what I came to realize was that there was something more important than just the physical aspect. People hyper focus, especially today, on looks and the gym and getting fit and all this stuff. And there's a place for that, right? My podcast, my company is Happy Healthy Human. Health is a part of it, physical health being a big piece of that, but it's not the end all be all. It is not the destination. It is a part of what is needed to get to the destination, I believe. And all of this came over the course of 10 years while I was working as a personal trainer, working as a nutrition coach. Then eventually I left personal training and started doing online coaching for self-confidence and mindset. And the reason, again, self-confidence became the thing was because that was the thing that people really wanted. People would come to me in the gym, help me get abs, help me lose weight, help me eat better so I can lose the weight, help me eat better so I can. Well, it's like, well, what do you want to get out of that? Well, when I lose weight, then I'll be more confident. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll feel better. So to me, it just made sense. Like, why don't we just cut out the middleman and start to help people with what they actually want, which is just to be a little bit more confident, a little bit happier, and have a more fulfilling life. And that's what I became super passionate about and what I spend all my time on now.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. It's such a slippery slope when we get stuck in looking outside ourselves or for something external to make us feel whole inside. And it I think we all tend to get stuck in these traps in some point of our life, but it really takes that evolution of realizing that until we're whole inside, nothing outside of ourselves or no change externally could really fill that gap. And can you talk about diving in that a little bit deeper? Because I completely agree. It's so necessary that we recognize the deeper core values and core beliefs that we hold are the true root of it. But can you talk about your experience and how, when you started diving into that with people, they started getting the results that they wanted without doing all those external things to fill that internal void?
Yeah, well, I mean, you summed it up really well there. It's the external versus the internal, and it's also the this feeling of I'll be blank when blank. I'll be happy when blank. I'll be confident when blank. I'll be better when blank. Where if you understand that all of that is just a decision
Mhm.
within you to accept what you have currently, it becomes within your control. Because as long as you're putting your internal feelings as a result of something that is outside of yourself, and understand that even something as personal as fitness is outside of yourself because you don't have a direct control over it. You can't just will yourself to have abs. You can't just will yourself to be 20 pounds lighter. And you can over time, theoretically, but the reality is that it doesn't even work like that. You can take 100 people who have 100 pounds to lose and give them the same diet and the same exercise routine, and they're all going to have different amounts of weight loss, different experiences, and different things like that. So we have this feeling of like, well, if I just do the thing, then I'll get the result. And when I get the result, then I'll get to feel how that person feels. But the reality is, A, that's looking at it backwards. B, that's a broken way to see things because we assume that people who have it better than us, theoretically, quote unquote, air quotes here for people listening, better than us, have a better life. We see people who have more money and think that they have it better. We see people who have a fit body and think that they're somehow happier. But I always come back to Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain killed themselves. Like these are the people who are the happiest, best life, rich, traveling the world. They have every outward metric of success, and we're not happy. And when you understand that again, billionaires commit suicide and that there's a homeless guy on the street petting his dog who's the happiest person on the planet, you start to realize that these societal constructs of what we think that we need to be happy, to be healthy, to be whatever, just don't hold up once you give them a little bit of scrutiny. And so, what do we have control over? We have control over really nothing in life because we can go to people go, well, you can control your thoughts, you can control your actions, but you don't even have control over that. Because how often have you had a thought and you go, what the hell? Like, why did I even just think that? Or how often have you said something that you wish you could have taken back? So yes, you have the most control over your thoughts and actions and your words, but you don't even have complete control over that. Again, you can't just will yourself to stand up. There's some days anyone who battles with depression will know that some days you want to get up and your body just says no. So all of this stuff is outside of our control. So to me, it all comes to acceptance. Because if you can accept what you have now and be happy now and love now and be content now and be confident now, then you unlock the capacity to then do what you need to do. It's a backwards way of thinking. And a lot of people are like, well, like if I was happy now, I wouldn't need to do all this extra stuff. But that's the wrong way of thinking about it. The reality is the things that I do for myself, I do for myself because I deserve it. Because I'm happy and a happy person, I want to have a healthy body. I don't work out to look a certain way. I work out because my human body demands it of me. The human body, it gets better if I give it the right things being good food, exercise, sleep, books to read, and it gets worse if I don't. I get larger, sicker, joints hurt, bones hurt, all of these things. It's like it's very binary. We know what to do, but we have to just we look at it backwards. We're like, oh, well, like I'm doing it to get this result. No, the result is the result is the result. I'm doing this thing just because it's what's demanded of me by the universe. I don't get to choose the rules. The rules of this life that I was born into are just that I have to do certain things. I want to because it's what I deserve. I don't need to do it for some external validation or anything like that. And when you can detach yourself from that, it's so freeing because otherwise we're doing everything for a reason outside of ourselves. And when we do something for a reason outside of ourselves, it's very easy to give up because in reality, we know that it doesn't matter. So when you're doing it because the motivation is like, well, I'm doing it to look good for this, or I'm doing it to be rich so that I can impress so and so. It's like, yeah, that motivation feels good for a little while, but when this stuff gets real and it gets hard, when it will always get hard because it can never be easy, when it gets hard and you have a reason that's anything other than it's because I want to, you're going to go, well, like, screw this, and you're not going to do it. Whereas if you're just doing it for purely for the reason of like, this is what I want to do, then why would you ever stop?
Yeah, such a great distinction because it is, I mean, so many people fall into that trap of going back to their old patterns, becoming being the person that they were for years and always just giving up on themselves so too quickly. And it's like, as you're speaking, a quote that I heard, I think it was Jamie Carlino that said it, but you lower yourself to the level of your worth. And so no matter what you're doing in life, you're going to lower yourself to what you think you're worthy of. And it very much plays into what you're saying. It's like you want to do something and you feel like you deserve to do this for yourself and you feel like you're valuable enough to invest that time yourself. Like you're going to show up for yourself in that standard. But yeah, if you're doing it for outside yourself, there's nothing to anchor it down in that way. And one thing that you brought up was the word will. And I think this is something that we often get stuck on, is that we rely on willpower to push ourselves, do it more, and we come down on ourselves and we get negative, like, well, I just need to do this. And you force it, force it, force it, force it. And that's a finite resource. Can you dive into willpower and why that will fail us time and time again, and how we can use something else to help us long term?
Yeah, well, again, you hit it right on the head. Willpower is a finite resource. And this, people don't like to hear this because there's like, again, it's counter to everything that is thrown out in society. This is all of the guys who go viral on TikTok or Instagram are just like, just got to get up. You just got to grind. You just got to do it. So the David Goggins and the Andy Frisellas and the 75 hards and like all this other stuff. And people see that stuff and it's alluring because it's like, okay, like if I just work harder, then I can do it. But the reality is, if that were the answer, you would have already done it because we all know how to work hard. No one listening to this is averse to hard work. We might say we are. People will say all the time, we're like, I'm just lazy. I know I need to work out, but I'm just lazy. It's like, okay, well, what about your kids? Do you take care of them? Do you get up in the morning and feed them at 6 o'clock in the morning when you don't want to? Well, yeah, of course I do. It's my kids. Well, did you take your car for an oil change when you had to do that? Well, yeah, of course I did. It would break down if I didn't. Do you do your job even though you hate it? Well, of course I do because I need to eat. Well, of course. Well, then you're not lazy. You do stuff. It's just you pick and choose your battles. So the thing about willpower is, again, it's this finite resource, and we think that it's the end all be all of how to get things done. It's like, I just need to grit my teeth and bear it. I just need to power through it. I just need to like put my head down and go. But the reality is that that's counter to everything inside of us. Human nature and the nature of all life in general is to rest. All life wants to do is to survive. And anything that expends extra resources, resources being energy for humans, calories, is counter to the very nature of life. No animal in the animal kingdom is just gritting their teeth and doing things through sheer willpower, unless it's life or death. And if it's life or death, then you can do it too. That's why all of those stories that you hear, they're like, well, this guy did it, so I can do it too. Well, that guy was about to die. That guy who came back from cancer, or the CEO who was sleeping on the floor of their car for 10 years and invested every last dollar that they had, like, yeah, they can do it because they're up against it. And you could too. The human spirit and human will can achieve everything. Everything great that has ever been achieved has been through sheer force of will. But the reality is, we are not there right now. You are probably not there. If your goal is to just be a little bit healthier, a little bit happier, just to have some better habits, because you could lose 20 pounds, but if you didn't, it's certainly not going to kill you. If that's you, then relying on willpower is only going to lead you astray. If you are to that point where it's like, I'm at rock bottom and something's got to change or my life is over, then you will do it. Willpower will get you there. But most of us who just, again, want to be a little bit better, a little bit happier, a little bit healthier, have a slightly better life, do better tomorrow than I did yesterday, willpower is not the way to do it. And for me, what I've come to find and what I teach now is the opposite of that. And what you can rely on is enthusiasm. That to me is the guiding light that we should be looking towards. Not what can I do if I have to force myself. It's what do I want to do? What can I feel enthusiastic about? Because if I have enthusiasm about something, then I don't need willpower. I don't need motivation. I don't need anything else. I want to do it. So again, going back to myself as an example, for exercise, before this podcast, I was climbing. So right now, my main exercise is indoor rock climbing, which compared to the weight training that I used to do is not as an efficient workout. It's not lifting. It's not getting jacked. It's not getting strong, but I like doing it. So I don't have to try hard to get up in the morning and do it. I get up and I want to go. So what is the compound interest of that over time, rather than going and having to take a pre-workout and amp myself up and drag myself to the gym to lift for 45 minutes versus just going to the climbing gym where I enjoy and I can hang out there for 2 hours and just have a good time because I'm enjoying it. It's the same thing with eating healthy. It's the same thing with anything that you want to do. Find a way to do it that you can be enthusiastic about. Now, obviously, there are actions that you're not always enthusiastic about, right? Because you might say, well, I have to work out and I just don't want to. It's like, well, then you're looking at it wrong. find a way to work out that you can be enthusiastic about. That to me is just a lack of imagination, because there's infinite ways to work out. There's walking, there's running, there's rucking, there's hiking, there's dancing, there's yoga, there's Zumba, there's lifting. There's literally infinite things. You've tried them all? I doubt it. Same thing with eating healthy. Well, I just don't like eating healthy. It's like, again, that's just a lack of imagination. You can find a way to get to the result that you're trying to get to, that you like, that you enjoy, that you're enthusiastic about. And if you do that, the need for willpower falls away immediately.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think one thing that is coming through to me as you were speaking is the word curiosity. And I think that's what a lot of people lose, is this curiosity, because we get stuck in a rut of listening to so many people, especially on social media. You should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then it feels so overwhelming that I think that's when we get stuck in, like what you were saying. It's like, I don't like that. It's not me. I don't do that. And into that, where we shut it down before we even get started, because it becomes so overwhelming, or we just don't fit into where people say we should fit, instead of exploring ourselves. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like, the more we know ourselves, how now we can explore curiosity rather than always looking for some expert outside ourselves to tell us exactly what to do. Can you talk about the explorative process so that we can get into that enthusiastic mindset?
Yeah. Knowledge of self is the ultimate superpower,
Mhm.
because again, as humans, it's everything is a paradox, because it's both and, it's not either or. We are so the same. There's human nature. Again, the nature of life is to shy away from things that are energy expensive and want to rest. There's cognitive biases. There's all these things that we do as humans that all humans will do. And yet at the same time, we are all perfectly unique individuals. No two people are exactly alike. So to know yourself is the ultimate tool, because then you know what will work for you. As a coach, people always think that I'm going to tell them what to do. And my very first conversation with them is like, I'm never going to tell you what to do, because no one knows you like you know you. How silly would it be for me to hop on a phone call with someone and go, you do this, this, and this, when you've been living your life for 20, 30, 40, 50 years? You have all the data. So you know what's going to work. So when someone says eat healthy, that's fine. You do need to eat healthy. But what eating healthy looks like for you is different. And now again, if you back yourself into this corner of I can't, I've tried that, it doesn't work for me. That's just again, being curious of being like, well, what if it was? What if it was different? What if there was a way? It's all of these. If we, again, I come back to just asking questions of ourselves or of these thoughts, unravel them immediately. Simple question is, do I know that to be true? I can't eat healthy. I don't like healthy foods. It's like, well, I don't know. Have you tried every food? Because maybe there's one out there that you enjoy. The shoulds are a huge part of this, right? I always, if anyone is just listening and not watching, anytime I say the word should, I put up air quotes, because there's no such thing as what should be. The shoulds are propagated by society, by stories in our own head, by our upbringing. They're these thoughts that are pervasive, and they're the number one thing that hold people back. I teach a course on self-sabotage, about why we get in our own way and quit on our dreams and quit on our goals. And it's an acronym that I teach called SLUMP. But the S, the very first letter in the acronym, is the shoulds and supposed tos. It's the number one thing that will hold you back, because inherently, if you're doing something and you're saying it should be like this, that's bringing up a discrepancy. Because if you're saying it should be like this, you're saying that it isn't. I should have lost 10 pounds on this diet, but I only lost 5. Well, that means that it's not working. It should be easier, but this is really hard. Well, then that's not worth it. I should have more money saved by now because I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what should be. All that matters is what is, because that's real. Any should is inherently fictitious. It's only as real as you believe it to be. And we only believe it's real because we've been told that it should be. So if you can just let that go and realize that nothing should, there only is what is. And if I don't like what is, I can change what is, and that's okay too. But it's not because it should, it's just because, again, I deserve that and I've chosen that. But it all starts with, as you said, curiosity, because if we think that there's only one way to do it, then we tried that one way. Then it's like, well, I tried, I gave it my best. We start to rationalize like that. It's like, I have tried. oh, I know that going to the gym is hard, is something everyone says you're supposed to lift weights. It's really good for you. It's good for your bone density, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but I went to the gym 3 years ago and I had a really bad experience. I tried it already. It didn't work for me. It's like, that's not how this works. That one try wasn't the most enjoyable experience for you. Maybe you had a bad trainer, maybe you had a bad experience, maybe you went to a bad gym, maybe you just wasn't the right time in your life for it. But to say that that is like, and that's it, and now I get to stop because I've already done it, it's only harming yourself. Whereas if you take a mindset of being open-minded and openly curious and saying like, okay, that didn't work, but what else can I try? It's being a scientist. Everything is an experiment, right? Okay, I tried that, it didn't work. I move on to the next experiment. And if you do that, eventually you will find something that works because that's just the nature of life again.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And just going back to that should part too, it's like when you have those expectations of how it should go, and then you're looking at your life and it's not exactly meeting that, now it becomes that focus on lack rather than celebrating any win. So even if you did make progress, but you're not exactly where, again, quote, where you should be, your focus instead of on the wins you've made and the progress you've made now goes on to the lack. And that is the worst thing you can do to move yourself forward and keep yourself going. So yeah, I mean, that's so many great points there. And I think it's such a slippery slope that many people get stuck into, and it does hold them back. And sometimes it's so subconscious, you don't even realize it's going on in the background because maybe this is your pattern of thinking and how you've lived your whole life, and you feel like you're stuck and there's something, quote, wrong with you. But it's just that you haven't dove into yourself enough or understood yourself enough or have that awareness of what you're telling yourself. So I love that. Flipping it more into a positive route of like, okay, if this exists, maybe someone's relied on willpower, they have been focusing on their shoulds and a lot of like the negative aspects. How do we start to cultivate habits and use habits so that we can have longevity in the things that we desire in our life?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is the main thing that I work with people on. So I look at this, I always say it's two sides, technical and tactical. The technical is like the mindset stuff, the mental stuff, like what's going on up here between our ears that's like making all of this mess. Like this is like my self-talk, my thoughts, my patterns, my past, and all this stuff. And then there's the tactical. It's like, okay, like I get all that. Like, what the hell do I do about it? Right. And like you need both because one without the other, it will fall flat because you can have all of the theory in the world. And then if you're not actually doing anything about it, you're probably not going to get anywhere. And you could have all the best strategies, the best tactics, but if you don't understand the why of why you keep falling into these patterns, you're probably just going to end up stuck and frustrated. So, with habits and goal setting, that type of thing, there's a few simple strategies that we can use. The first thing, we're recording this the first week of the new year. So, New Year's resolutions are still heavy on people's minds. I don't know when this will be released, but it's still very salient. It's what I call the New Year's resolution effect. It's where people start, what is it? Okay, it's January 1st. What do I want to do? It's like, well, so I'm going to start eating healthy and I'm going to cut out carbs. I'm going to start exercising 5 times a week and I'm going to stop watching Netflix. I'm going to start sleeping more and smoking less. And blah, blah. It's like, you're doing too much. You're drinking through a fire hose. I said before, the nature of life and the nature of humans is to err away from spending energy. So when you're doing so much, you're giving yourself all the ammunition you need to not do it. It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. It's heavy, and this is where you get yourself into having to rely on willpower. Instead, you break things down into their smallest constituent parts. What's the smallest possible thing that I can do to move the needle? It's easy. Easy. I understand when I say this, it's easy to do too much. That's why people go to it. They're like, oh, I'm just cut out all the carbs and work out 5 hours a day. The hard part is the nuance. The hard part is finding out how do I do it in a way that's sustainable in the long term. And again, we do that by the smallest possible steps. I don't want to do this huge thing to have to move you forward. To me, that's idiot proof. I don't like it doesn't take any thought. How do we figure out how to move you forward while doing it so little that it doesn't even feel like you're doing anything? Because then you add another one of those, and then you add another one of those. And all of a sudden, over 6 months, it feels like you haven't done much, but your whole life has changed because you've instilled all of these small habits that you've layered over time. So that's a huge one, is starting with small action steps that you layer over time. Rather than thinking about these big, audacious goals or trying to do everything all at once, give yourself more time. The number one reason people don't reach their goals is just because of a poor understanding of time. they have goals, and you can achieve any goal. Like we said already, the human will is indomitable. You can literally achieve anything. I believe that. The question is, how much time are you going to give it? You want to lose 100 pounds? You can do that. Probably not going to happen in a month. You want to create $1 billion company? You can probably do that too. Might take you 10 years. How fast are you trying to do it? Because if you set yourself up with unrealistic time expectations, that goes in your brain's bank of like, oh, reasons that I can quit. So you have to break this down into small action steps. And then with goal setting, I want to have big goals that stretch me. But those aren't enough, because if I only have those big goals that stretch me, then what I end up doing is I hyper focus on them. They seem too far away. And again, that gives my brain a reason to say, oh, this doesn't make sense. I'm going to quit. So I need the big goals that help me look forward. These are my 1 year, 5 year, 10 year goals. But I also need the small daily action goals. They call these low hanging fruit goals. These are goals that I was just talking about that are so easy, you almost can't not do them. This is the stuff: drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, getting your 10,000 steps, turning off the TV at 9 o'clock at night, because these are the action steps that build you towards that healthy person that you want to be a year or 2 years from now. You don't get to just transform into that. It takes the daily actions. But again, it's you have to have both, because if you have just the daily actions, it's like, what the hell is one glass of water going to do? What the hell is getting an extra hour of sleep going to do? Tomorrow it does nothing. You drink a glass of water today, you go to sleep an hour earlier, you wake up tomorrow, literally nothing has changed about your life. But all of a sudden, a cascade effect happens when you do it over and over and over and over and over. And having that big goal out in the future helps you remember that. It's something that you can latch onto, because we like transformations. No one wants to do something for nothing. So you have to have that picture in your head of like, what is all of this for? And when you have both of those, that's what keeps you going. But again, if you only had the big one, that's when you're trying to rely on willpower. It's the small daily action steps that really get you there.
Oh, absolutely. And that consistency is everything, and just showing up for yourself day in and day out, huge. And when you talk about goals, because this can be something that people can really struggle with, because they can do these like overarching, way too big goals, or they could just do ones that are like so easy that they're like, oh yeah, I could easily do that. I'll do that because maybe I don't believe in myself. Can you talk about like that sweet spot that people can really aim for, where what are some signs that they are setting really good goals for themselves, that they are stretching themselves, but not so far that it feels like they could just quit on themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question, because again, anything can be taken too far or too short. Well, the reality is any goal is a good goal. There's no goal too small. Let's put it that way, because anything that nudges you forward helps.
Mhm.
Now, how do we know if we're taking it too easy on ourselves, so to speak, and just kind of using it as a cop out? There's two things. One, the term I always use is challenging but doable. It has to be challenging, because what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. All of this goes back to physical fitness. How do muscles work? Everyone has heard you tear your muscle down so that it rebuilds. So if you're just lifting those light 2 pound dumbbells and you're never actually getting any stress on your muscle, you're never giving it a reason to grow.
Mhm.
Now, the second part of that is doable, because if I just told you go lift 100 pounds right now, yes, that would tear your muscles, but you physically can't do it. So I'm setting you up for failure. And now the thing is that your body is an adaptation machine. So you do challenging but doable. You lift a weight that's just out of your comfort zone, just a little bit too much, where you can do it, but by the end of it, it's hard. Right. So this is where you do 3 sets of 10. And the first time you do 10, and the second time you do 10, and the third time you get to 8 or 9. You're right there. You're in that sweet spot. Like, you can do it, but it's really hard. You could eke it out with crappy form if you wanted to. But what happens is you come back stronger next time. And now you get 3 sets of 10. And then you come back next time, and now you can do 3 sets of 12. And now you up the weight again to get back into that challenging but doable sweet spot. And this is just an analogy using fitness, because I think a lot of people can understand this, but this is everything. This is where you want to be with reading books, with starting a business, with your relationships. Like, you want it to push you enough that it gets you moving, but not so much that it's unsustainable. And that's, again, what people do, like I was saying, that New Year's resolution effect, where it's like, I'm just going to do everything right now. I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. It's like, okay, but how long can you keep that up for? Yes, it's challenging, but is it doable? And that really is like the sweet spot. And again, that the thing is that because we adapt, that moves. So what's challenging and doable now, if you're doing the thing consistently, will no longer be challenging a couple months from now.
Mhm.
And something that's challenging and at the very tail end of doable, like it's just barely doable, that's fine, because a month from now it'll be very doable. And then 2 months from now it'll be too easy, because that's how adaptation works. So you want to make sure that you're doing like that that place where it is going to push you, but not so far that again, it makes you not enthusiastic about it. So that's what I'm saying. Like it is a sweet spot because you could say again, what's ideal? Like, okay, well, running 5 miles a day really stretches me. It's challenging and I can do it. But if it's so far on the aspect of challenging and so just barely doable, that's where we get away from also being enthusiastic about it. It's like, well, yes, I can do it. Yes, it stretches me, but I don't want to. So now you have to find something that's like, what about the rower? Like, I don't like running. I won't run for an hour, but I'll ride my bike for 3 hours. So like that's my cardio of choice. So again, there's always a workaround with all of this stuff. There's no one right way to do it. There's nothing again that you should be doing, but finding something that challenges you, you have to, because that's what goes back to what I was saying before about like these are just the laws of nature. You're growing or you're dying. A plant does not just stay there. It's either growing or it's dead. Any animal is either growing or it's dying, and humans are no different. So we think that we get to just like, well, yeah, I know that exercise is important, or I know that reading is important, or I know that personal development is important, but like, I'm just not like doing that right now. It's like, well, then you're getting worse. That's why it's so binary for me. It's like, for me, it's not choosing like, oh, do I want to work on myself or do I want to stay the same? Those aren't the options. The options are, do I want to work on myself or do I want to actively get worse? And since I don't actively want to get worse, the only logical option for me is to actively get better.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it is so true. We are either growing or dying. And it is like when it's so clearly stated like that, we can see it very clearly. But I do believe some people get into those like ruts and don't know how to get over them, get so overwhelmed by even taking any action that they think, that's where the trouble I think comes in, because people try to do so much, they go overwhelmed and then they just become stalled out, but in the process they're not growing, and it becomes such a vicious cycle for people, or they experience setbacks. And that's something that I love to hear your perspective on that. And so maybe if you have a goal, you're starting to work towards it, and then you experience a setback, how do you overcome those setbacks? What's the mindset that it will help someone get past that and through that so that they can continue to grow?
Yeah, it's all just perspective. And again, understanding that there is no should. A setback hinges on there's a way that this is supposed to go.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm supposed to start and then keep making progress and then just succeed. Who said that?
Mhm.
Where did you get this roadmap from that you think that that's the way it goes? Because it's not. It's just not real. So again, we could talk about like use setbacks as learning experiences and failure isn't final, and all of that is true. But my thing is just like, who said that you get to do it without setbacks? How arrogant of a thing to get to think that you get to do anything and just have it go smoothly. That's not life. Ask literally any person about literally anything they've ever done, and they'll tell you the same thing. So why do you get to be the exception? You don't. And that's fine. That's part of it. Setbacks are not a flaw in the system. They are a fundamental part of the system. Because again, your muscles get stronger when you work them past their set point. Your brain gets smarter only when you give it a reason to try. If you were sitting here as a 30-year-old reading children's books, you're not going to get smarter. You have to stretch yourself to do it. And in the very nature of stretching yourself, pushing yourself past your comfort zone, going past doable, you're going to have setbacks. It just is a part of it. It is not wrong or bad or mean you're less than. Like that actually, to me, that's what means that you're doing the right thing. When I face a setback, when I face a struggle, when I face something that's like, oh, God damn it, I'm like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, because this means I'm pushing hard enough to even get here. People who don't go through setbacks are people who aren't trying. They're the person who isn't actually in the game. And that's not where I want to be. So it's like, it's just a completely different way to look at things. Why would I look at a setback as bad? One, how arrogant to think that I wouldn't have setbacks. And then to think that there's anything negative about it. It's just like, yeah, it sucks. It's annoying when you're going through it. Of course, I get that. Like no one wants to be like, I would love for it to just be smooth sailing all the time. But, as the saying goes, like great sailors aren't made on smooth seas, right? So it's like that the whole point is the setbacks.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a huge perspective, because I believe that too. It's like every time I have something, happen where it is a setback, I'm like, oh, good. This is just validation that things are challenging and I am pushing myself. Because if you're not having setbacks in your life, that really is your indicator that you're not doing anything outside your comfort zone. Like you've been there, done that, you're doing the same thing. Of course, it's a predictable outcome. But when it becomes unpredictable, that's when you realize you're actually growing. And it's such a beautiful reminder and perspective shift, because some people do get, especially if you're a perfectionist and you're a high achiever, like you get stuck in those mindsets of like, I can't fail. I can't, this something has to be wrong with me. But no, that is just your validation. And thank you for sharing that perspective, because I completely agree with it. It is such a validation for that you are doing the right thing, you're on the right track. So absolutely love that. For someone who wanted to connect with you and work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is just my podcast. I would love for people to just check out Happy Healthy Human. You can check out Kelly's episode on there as well. Hundreds of episodes of free knowledge and free stuff. So I would love for people to just dig into that for free. If people do want to go deeper and coach with me or check out some of my courses, you can just send me a message on any platform on social media. It's just my name at Paul Levitin across all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. Send me a friend request, add me, and just let's chat and see if it's something that can help you.
Awesome. Love it. I'll put everything in the show notes, and definitely check out his podcast. Go rate, review it, subscribe, and definitely listen to some of those episodes. And I just want to thank you again for being on today, sharing your perspective, your insight. It's been such a great conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, for anyone who's listening, please, if you found value in this, share it with a friend and spread the word, because it's really through these platforms and growing these platforms that we can share these messages that there's a different way to live life and that we can live more abundantly and with more joy. So again, thank you for tuning in today and being part of this community.